Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, I have listened both in here and in my office today, your testimony before this committee. And I think the frustration that I have as the cleanup crew at the very end of this committee is that you seem to answer very eloquently all the questions that the other side of the aisle pose, but when posed with questions, specific questions about the border on this side of the aisle, you seem to dance and dodge, as Ms. Hageman talked about, the true answers that you talk about, you filibuster, if you will, what people really are asking. And these aren't questions that are hatched out of some think tank. These are questions that our citizens have because they see what's going on. You know, what's remarkable to me since day one of this administration, you've terminated construction of the border wall. You restricted the ability of immigration officers to deport aliens who violate U.S. law. You terminated the MPP, the Remain in Mexico policy, despite people on the ground talking about how successful that it was. You abused parole authority to release illegal aliens en masse into the United States and creating categorical parole programs in violation of the ANA's case-by-case basis. You refuse to follow federal law requiring aliens to be detained during the pendency of their asylum proceedings. You terminated asylum cooperative agreements with Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras. You refuse to comply with the provisions of the INA that require the detention of asylum seekers. You cut out immigration judges, ICE attorneys, and the process of the asylum system itself. You support sanctuary city policies by giving them grants. You implemented until it was enjoined a 100-day moratorium on alien removals. You have misused, as has been talked about here, the CBP One app that has institutionalized mass parole and release policies in this country. It's been described as a shell game, pretty fairly stated, that you otherwise shift things around. You create definitions within your department that you think that are appropriate. You create law, which isn't your function, and then you come before Congress and you say that everything is fine. Well, we've been to Yuma, Arizona, sir, and we've seen the devastation down there. We've talked to people. 70 sheriffs just last year said that there is no border at all. We simply have no border left in Arizona, New Mexico, Southern California, and Texas. That's the National Sheriff's Association. You've been held to account by courts. Texas v. Biden, DHS's position, quote, position that the crisis at the border is not largely of their own making because of their more lenient detention policies is divorced from reality and belied by the evidence. Florida versus the United States in the Northern District of Florida, quote, the Biden administration have effectively turned the southwest border into a meaningless line in the sand and little more than a speed bump for aliens flooding into the country by prioritizing alternatives for detention over actual detention and by releasing more than 1 million aliens into the country. Real quick, let's play a video.
Crisis on the border that just keeps getting worse. These are live pictures of Del Rio, Texas, a town that borders Mexico, where almost 9,000 migrants are currently camping out.
Government data showing there were more than 220,000 encounters with migrants along the border last month, the highest number in 22 years.
Law enforcement leaders from federal, state, and local agencies announced Tuesday an unprecedented 2-month-long fentanyl enforcement surge along the southwest border that resulted in the seizure of more than 4,700 pounds of fentanyl.
Fentanyl being pushed through the desert around El Paso is up more than 355% compared to last year.
For the first time, fentanyl is being smuggled between the ports of entry.
There have been more than 200 people on the FBI terror watch.
Crisis on the border that just keeps getting worse.
So the numbers don't lie. 5.6 million illegal immigration or illegal alien encounters, 1.5 million known gotaways, more than 2.2 million illegal aliens into this country, meaning that 3.6 million illegal aliens are in this country since the start of your tenure. That's astronomical. 160 countries. The people on the terror watch list that we know about, 140 just this year. It's at an all-time high. So look, this doesn't lie. These are the stats, Mr. Secretary. And so you come up here and you blame the former president, and you say that they've gutted the immigration system. You blame Congress for not acting. But you know what? These numbers weren't here for Obama. They weren't here for Trump. But they seem to be here for you. So you like to blame other people for your failures in not doing your job. And quite frankly, the American people want to know, how qualified are you to even carry out your mission? Because everybody else seems to indicate, from local law enforcement to sheriffs to ranchers to farmers to citizens on the border, when I ask them, is the border more secure? They say resoundingly no. And that's on your watch, sir. With that, I yield.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman yields back. The gentleman, if we could maybe just wait till the sign's taken down there, Mr. Moore, and then we'll let you have your 5 minutes with the Secretary. The gentleman from Alabama is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here today. I'm certainly appalled at what's happening at the southern border, and I know my constituents are too. Your border policies make every state a border state. And I said my constituents are appalled, but what's happening, but I know a family who has personally been suffering the consequences of your actions. And in my district, the 2nd Congressional Districts in Alabama, the Talladega County Sheriff's Department arrested Greevy Zavala, a 29-year-old illegal alien from Honduras, for the rape of a teenage girl in Prattville, Alabama, in a restaurant. The interesting thing is Mr. Zavala identified, I guess, as a minor is what I'm being told, but he was a 29-year-old. And Mr. Secretary, why do you think it is, and I've been to the border a few times myself, that we're finding so many IDs thrown down south of the border? It's almost like if these people were coming here to apply for asylum, they'd want us to know who they were and what they were up to. But for some reason, ID after ID are just piling up south of the U.S. border. Why do you think that might be?
Congressman, first of all, I'm very sorry, of course, to learn of the tragedy that occurred, that was inflicted on a constituent of yours.
I understand that, Mr. Mayorkas, and let me say this, sir. We've been apologizing to a lot of people for a long time, at least in the last few months, last few years. Even when the other party was in charge, they had the White House, the House, and the Senate. And we're continuing apologizing to parents for losing their children to fentanyl, and for people getting raped in restrooms, and for DUIs, or people who are killing people with cars who have no driver's license. And I understand the apologies, but my people, the constituents in this country, are getting tired of apologies, and they want action. And so who's responsible for the death, or let's say the rape of this 14-year-old? Is that you, Mr. Mayorkas, or is that President Biden, or is it Congress? Who's responsible for that?
Congressman, the criminal who committed the act is responsible. I look forward to working with you to address the scourge of fentanyl that is causing so much devastation and death. I look forward to working with you to fix what has long been a broken immigration system.
I hear you, but let me say this, sir, and you're aware of this too. This administration has created two things on the southern border: drug mules and human trafficking. And it's the policies of this administration, because we talked about it earlier in here, and you said $4,000 to $5,000. Yeah, that's just south of the U.S. southern border. In Yuma, Arizona, there's 109 different countries came through that small town. And further south of the border, they're paying the cartel $7,000 or $8,000. Syrians are paying $19,000. So the cartel's getting rich, and the American people are paying the price in the form of crimes and drug deaths. And so we can sit here and talk, and for 4 hours now, 3 hours, however long this has gone on, there's a lot of apologies, but not a lot of answers. And we need answers for the American people, and I think you're to be held responsible for that. And believe me, it's not fun to have parents in here telling us how they lost their child to fentanyl poisoning, but it's on your watch, sir, and it's on our watch. And we have a responsibility to do something about that. And so, you know, it just, again, the policies, we're turning a blind eye, and people are pouring in here. Sheriff Daniels said himself in testimony a few months ago, he said the safest he's ever seen the U.S. southern border, he was a four decades on the U.S. southern border, was around 2018. He said the worst he's ever seen is now. And so we have a responsibility to these people. Let me ask you another question. This is an individual. I just got this information. Reports in November of 2021, DHS encountered Issam Bassi, an alien on the terror watch list. Now, Mr. Bassi, despite, quote, from the FBI, highly derogatory information, end quote, this is in the FBI's database, DHS decided to release him into the U.S. because he was overweight and may have been susceptible to COVID-19. Are overweight terrorists not a threat to the U.S.?
I'm sorry, Congressman.
Are overweight terrorists? We turned Mr. Bassi loose because he was overweight and afraid he might get COVID, and he was on the FBI's list. So are they a threat, overweight terrorists?
Congressman, individuals who pose a threat to national security or public safety are detained. That is the policy
Unless they're
of the
overweight.
Department of Homeland Security. That is false.
Well, that's what the report is.
I'm not familiar with that report. I look forward to reading it. Congressman, the weight of an individual is not relevant to their profile as a threat to the United States.
It is to
the
catching
American
COVID, though, apparently.
Congressman, allow me to repeat myself. Individuals who pose a public safety threat or national security threat are priorities for detention. That is the policy of the Department of Homeland Security.
Who's to blame for the floodgates being open on the southern border, Mr. Mayorkas?
Congressman, I look forward to working with you to fix what is clearly a broken immigration system. The issue of migration, the increase in migration, is not exclusive to the United States. During World War II, there were 60 million displaced people around the world. Now there are over 117.
We just had a report earlier today. Somebody said that there is no border anywhere on the globe that is more porous, if you will, than the United States border and more insecure. And it's on your watch, sir. And with that, I'll yield.